Sounds okay now, actually, which is interesting.
Well, I switched off the laptop. I think it might be overheating. Or something.
Oh, okay. Hi, Stacy. So, yeah, first time we've met, I think. So, how are you?
Hi, Roger. How are you?
Yeah. What's the story behind this name then?
Oh, it's an old story from the 80s. It was just a moniker I came up with before the days of the internet, and then when internet came along, I used it as my email, and it just rolled with it. That was what I opened up my YouTube account with, and a bunch of other accounts. So I just stayed with it. It was supposed to be for my art projects, kind of a moniker for my art projects, but that never panned out.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, the way that people get names? You know, their names come from weird places, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But I wanted to come on, Roger, because I wanted to ask you a question, maybe have a bit of a philosophical debate with you about something.
Oh, yeah. I'm very tired, you know.
I've heard you several times say, about what the Vegan Society and Donald Watson's true goals were, is to include all animals, including humans, in order to come about to a conclusion of a better world for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I understand that, but my question is, what would a better world look like if we're still doing it for ourselves? If we're looking at the end goal instead of just doing it for altruistic reasons, which is just for the non-human animals, how do we get an end goal where it's a better world and we evolve?
Well, they saw it as well. I mean, I tend to go back to this issue of focus and scope. So their focus is always on our relationships with other animals. That was always the focus. But they said that there was going to be serious and really good ramifications for human beings. And so Watson said that the vegan movement was the only movement that could save humanity. He made such a big claim. In fact, he actually said it's the greatest cause on earth. And
that's my question, though. It's how are we going? So we're basically saying veganism is to benefit ourselves.
No, I think they were talking more abstractly about humanity, in the sense that the reason that they came up with this formula, I think, is the fact that the vegan social movement was born during the Second World War, and so that means that they thought that we kind of regressed and de-evolved into a form of savagery or barbarity. And
sure.
So they wanted to try and work out. And so I always make the point, the kind of product of their time thing, is that they were living through the second global conflict in very short order. It's kind of like a history project for us, but they were living through it, and they were shocked. I mean, Watson said that they were shattered by the war. It was a shattering experience.
Well, the question is, if we're to evolve in the vegan movement or evolve as a species ourselves, how can we move forward if we're working for a goal for ourselves? It's not altruistic, because we're doing it. Veganism, essentially, we're doing to benefit ourselves.
Well, I think I'd explain it this way. Rather than thinking of veganism as animals only, which is a slogan in the movement, you could say it was other animals first. And so their primarily aim was to alter our mindset with regard to our violent position with regard to other animals. And so they said that the liberation of other animals would be our liberation as well. And so, if you like, in fact, Leslie Cross called the human part of it the second broad aspect of veganism. So the first one was always on the animals first thing.
Yeah.
But then there was these ramifications that flow from it, and they care deeply about that, because they did want to, as it were, get us out of a kind of moral hole as they saw it. So, but I don't think they were thinking. I don't think they were thinking about themselves as much as future generations. But I mean, they did care about humanity. And that's all you're saying, really. So it's kind of focus and scope. And so in some senses, this argument that's going on in the movement at the moment, should it be animals only? It is almost like a non-argument to me, because it, people say, oh, we shouldn't be bringing in human issues. Well, the human issues were there from the start. When nobody's bringing anything in, if anything, the animals only people are taking things out. That's why I call it a reducitarian. It's a limitation of what veganism was.
Okay, so that's where I think we disagree, because I don't think that, I'm sorry, I have these dogs that want to play with me. I don't think that we could actually evolve as a species ourselves without being first altruistic in our respect for the non-human animals. If we're doing it as an end goal.
Yeah, but I've just said that. That's what they said themselves. Yeah,
I know, but it needs to evolve, is what I'm trying to say. And I think you disagree with people taking human animals out of the equation, when I think that is actually how we get to that goal, how we get to the end goal, because we're not going to evolve as a species if we're still doing it as an end goal to benefit ourselves. I don't know if I'm being understood. I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well, because I've got a dog that's trying to play with me. Stop.
Wouldn't that rule out human rights advocacy, though, because of that?
But isn't that what we're talking about? Like,
no, I mean, in general, across the board, because you think, well, we can't be doing that because it's about us. I mean, like,
we could do that, but in our animal rights, within the scope of our animal rights, focusing on non-human animals alone, we can do other activism outside of that. I do. I mean, most activists I know do.
It's a question of what's being cut. I mean, Reagan would say it's all cut from the same moral cloth, and he argued in the case for animal rights that the animal rights movement was a part of and not opposed to the human rights movement. And so it doesn't have to be the focus, but it's just there as the part of the scope. So there's no need to take it out. I mean, nobody has to do anything for humans apart from adding to their oppression for it to fit within the vegan philosophy. I mean, like the real problem is when you've got groups like PETA and everything who use this kind of sexist, ableist, all that kind of stuff. But if that wasn't there, then there's nothing wrong with focusing just on our relationships. So if that's what people want to do, I mean, Michelle Lowe in the thread was saying other animals are the most oppressed. Well, okay, so if that's your focus, that's fine. But that's always been the focus of veganism. It's just the only thing is it's never been the scope. It's not, the scope has always been there, and so that's all really. I mean, it's kind of, to me, it's almost like we're arguing about something and nothing, because the scope is there. It doesn't get in the way of the focus. The focus is there too. It's just that some people want to make the focus the scope. That's what I object to.
Okay, that's what I thought I was objecting to, is making the focus the scope, and that's the end goal, instead of just working for the animals. Maybe we're in agreement. I just wanted to understand you. That's why I wanted to come on.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I go back to what Louise said. Sorry, I'll bring you in a minute. Louise talks about, the beauty of veganism. And I tend to think that it's a beautiful kind of vision of the future. But that future meant that, we would have a future for human beings who would be non-violent. And it would be, it's a utopian vision, let's face it. Yeah. It's a paradise for other animals and us. That's what they had in mind.
Yeah. I just personally don't think that we'll evolve to that without first starting off on the foot of doing something that not for the end goal of benefiting ourselves. Do you understand what I mean? Like,
well, I think
evolve.
Yeah, the animals first thing. I think the animals first thing does that, but it's so quickly followed by the benefit to us as well. It's kind of a linear thing. But I mean, I think it is an animal first thing, if you want to see it that way. But very quickly, human benefits come.
Yeah.
So I don't see the need to divorce the scope from the focus. I just don't see why we.
Well, like for example, I mean, I'm 51. I'm probably not going to see a vegan world in my lifetime, but that's not going to stop me from, you know, I won't see the benefits of that in that respect. But that's not going to stop me from fighting for the animals' rights to live
Same for me.
without me benefiting from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any children. So I don't have a horse in the race, if you know what I mean. I don't have any children, so it's not like I'm working for a better world for them, for the next generation. I just am in the moment working for the animals now. And well, I guess the future too, because I don't want them to be bred into a horrible existence. But I'm not doing it to benefit myself essentially in that way. You know what I mean?
I do, but that's why I think they talked about, well, they talked about man. I mean, humanity was an abstract for them. Sorry, Tom, what was you going to say?
I was just going to say, I know what you're saying, Stacy, and that shouldn't be the reason that we should be doing it just because it's going to help us, and it's just kind of the way, it's like a really spiritual thing, and because we'll become better, more compassionate human beings, that's why we should do it. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but yeah, that's not certainly not how I look at it, but I echo what in terms of Roger said. I think that in terms of the benefit that we'll have as moral evolution as a species, it's just naturally going to happen. Like, when we have a vegan world, we're going to be so much more aware of how we interact with our own species, with other animals, and I think about that as the kind of grand, ambition of what a vegan world is going to look like. But that's I don't tell people that. That's just something I keep in mind.
Sure.
Well,
okay.
I mean, if you're saying it's a utopian vision, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it is. I mean, the vegan society, they talked about the vegan mindset, which meant that we would kind of evolve again morally, and we would get ourselves out of that moral hole, and that then therefore the benefit for the planet. I mean, they also talked about planetary benefit. They talked about food security, so we'd feed everybody. It's a standard vegan argument. In a vegan world, we'd be able to feed everybody. Well, is that self-serving because we want to feed the starving?
Well, I think it is. Yeah, because we're talking about ourselves, like feeding ourselves.
Well, we're talking about our species, aren't we?
Do you think it's even possible for us to evolve out of? I guess that's a real question. Is it even possible for us to evolve as a species out of being self-serving?
Well, I think that would involve ideas like instrumental reason, which you get from critical theory, which is where the idea would be to stop thinking of each other as resources. Now, one way I think the vegans thought of that is that if we first started to think in that terms about our relationship with other animals, we would then, the knock-on effect would be, so again, we're back to animals first, if you like, but it's very closely linked together. And then the other aspect is don't do anything that's going to get in the, Sorry, say again.
I'm sorry, I wasn't meaning to interrupt you. I was just saying, but then again, you said our relationships with animals instead of just worrying about the animals and not worrying about ourselves. That's what I mean by, that's altruistic. And I just don't think as a species we're ever going to evolve. Well,
I meant as in we are the oppressors of them. And so we want to stop becoming oppressors of the animals. And that, you see, Donald Watson said in 1945, he said the object of the vegan society was to oppose the exploitation of sentient life. And he also said, which I kind of read as possibly an anti-capitalist statement, because he said whether it's profitable to do so or not. That was in the second edition or fourth edition of the magazine, answering a question. They did have this kind of radical vision of a future which would be far less violent across the board. And I don't really think that's self-serving. I think because they thought we need to sort out our relationship with other animals. That's the priority. In fact, Watson wrote in those terms, first thing to do is close down slaughterhouses. because we never, you know, it's almost like that idea about as long as there's slaughterhouses, there'll be battlefields, you know, that kind of thing. From Tolstoy. Okay, so it's an echo of that. And then they also talked about, you know, if we carry on enslaving other animals, then we're never going to stop enslaving. So it was connected, but it was animals first. So I don't really think you've got much to worry about, really.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just wanted to understand you a little bit better. When I hear you say that, I just, you know, I always thought, well, what's wrong with the focusing on animals and animals only?
No, but that's already right. That's already there. You see, the focus is there. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for having me on. I have to take care of this dog. He's driving me nuts.
Yeah, I'm getting pestered by a cat too. So.
Well, this is a huge German Shepherd, and he's insisting. So I'm gonna go.
Well, you know, I'm doing live streams all the time. So if you want to come back on for one of those, then let me know. Yeah.
All right. You have a great holiday, everyone.
Yeah, and you.
Bye.
Take care.